Today, we are exploring the 5.5 Vietnamese desserts that are worth your time. Some are completely alien.
I mean, who puts roast pork with sweet beans? A little bit crazy, huh?
Some are familiar, but with a twist.
The reason he hasn't given me a spoon is that this is incredibly soft tofu.
And some are good in ways that you just would not expect.
This one is like gelatinous and sticky. You should see this. It just really sticks to the spoon.
But only one reigns supreme as the ultimate Vietnamese dessert. Let's break it down.
This nation has the greatest cuisine in all of Southeast Asia. I mean, this was exceptional, really exceptional.
We're kicking things off in Hway, a town renowned for its royal cuisine. Especially chè, a sweet soup.
I want to try this one. I want to try this purple one. I want to try this giant one down here. And maybe this one. So let's do those four.
Chè comes in a huge array of variations and ingredients, from mung bean to jelly, tropical fruits, and coconut milk. And for some reason today, I've chosen to have this dessert for breakfast.
Okay, guys, so this is time now for my breakfast of heavy amounts of sugar. I don't know that I've ever had this much chè in my life, let alone for breakfast. Let's see how it goes. It is pretty incredibly popular here. There are a lot of customers, people buying for their homes, people buying in bulk, 20, 30 at a time. I think I'm gonna start out with the best looking chè, which is this kind of like milky banana and coconut mix. I'm not exactly sure what any of these are. So here we go. Wow. So this is a really sweet coconut paste. We get some shredded coconut in there. Let's give the banana a go. And that's kind of like a plantain or a ladyfinger banana, a fatter, slightly more texture to it. It's not as soft as a Cavendish banana. This one is on ice, so it's very cold, but really good. This is though what chè really is known for, at least in my mind, and that is sweetened beans, which is the thing that is kind of like off-putting and jarring because you don't think of sweet beans as being all that good. Okay, so next up we have this kind of crazy purple concoction. I think it must be some kind of sweet potato, taro, something like that. Let's give it a go. Huh, that is like such a jarring kind of flavor. I don't think that you would ever be able to actually taste that this was potato if this was the first time you were eating it. Oh. Really, you don't get much of that coconut flavor at all. It just kind of adds a creaminess to it, which is surprising to me. Okay, we're moving on to the hot one. So when you order chè, you can get it either hot or cold. I decided to go for 2 and 2, just so we get a sort of fair impression of the things. This one here, you can really see the coconut custard on top. I really kind of like fat beans. I don't know how this is going to go down. Maybe I should try and split it in half. Oh my God, I think I'm just going to eat the whole thing at once. Well, I almost died eating that thing. So I have no idea how to describe this. It's kind of got a potatoey base, something inside it, and then you have a sticky, gelatinous outer paste. I think it's some kind of like mochi or rice paste on the outside, and then a bean on the inside. They're like these big dumplings of sweetness. And then of course you have the coconut custard on top. All of this is mixed together with a sweet syrup. So you get this just mash of flavors, the tropical coconut feel, the toasted sesame, adding a little bit of aromatics. And it is, again, really odd to be eating this for breakfast. Alright, last one guys. My sugar overdose is about to finish up. What we have here, I believe, is like a corn or a mung bean, something like that. This one is like gelatinous and sticky. You should see this. It just really sticks to the spoon. And the custard just sits on top. It doesn't mix in at all with this one. Once again, I've gone for this one as a hot paste. Wow. The beans here really have some bite to them still. These have some really kind of crunchy beans. And you have a really thick paste here as opposed to a syrup with this one. Again, I think this is the tough thing to really get your head around with chè. When it gets down to it, really what you're talking about here is sweet beans. And in the big scheme of desserts, sweet beans, I don't know. We've got a lot of options out there, you know what I mean? So overall, don't get me wrong, some of these are really good. But in terms of global cuisine, in terms of global dessert, I don't know that this would be what I'm going for.
chè here is supposedly more refined and diverse. There's every flavor and texture of chè you can imagine. It's gelatinous, sticky, fruity, creamy, and even meaty. But there is one ingredient that really stands out here, and that is roast pork. So, in our quest to discover the desserts of Hway, we were able to find a very nice chè stall this morning. However, there was one type of chè that we're missing, a specialty that you can only really find here in Hway, and that is chè Hway. Very different, right? I mean, who puts roast pork with sweet beans? A little bit crazy, huh? That's why we're after it. Let's check it out. Ooh, nice. I want chè. Put chè Hway on. No, there's no chè Hway. Okay, it turns out this chè Hway stuff is not that common. We've gone through one place so far, they do not have it. But after a short walk, we managed to find exactly what we're after. A street stall advertising 20 different variations of chè, including the Hway specialty roast pork sweet dessert soup. Boom, we have found it. Roadside, that stall. It looks kind of strange. It's just kind of like clear liquid in a glass with white balls. It's not what I was expecting. This glass contains the elusive chè Hway. Kind of strange because this is not at all what I was expecting when I heard roast pork. You know, I was sort of thinking meatballs, but these, I mean, they must be meatballs, but they're wrapped in a white concoction. Really strange. And this syrup doesn't look like syrup. I mean, it could be, but it looks to me just like water. It's iced, which is already another strange thing. First, I'm going to try some of this liquid because it just seems so odd that you just put it in water. It is not water. It is, in fact, some kind of clear syrup. Huh. And that is much sweeter than the kind of syrup that we've had in the other chairs. It's kind of strange, entirely clear, but super sweet. First Hway ball, whatever you would call this thing. Let's check it out. Wow. Really chewy. Yeah, so that's kind of like the skin, the crackling of the pork. Doesn't have the crunch because it's obviously been saturated. It's a really odd mix, but in some way it's almost like a glazing that you would find on some pork bellies maybe. Really unusual flavor. I think that's the thing that throws me off here. It's not that it's not good. It kind of is. Once you get familiar with the flavors, there's something there. It's just that they're so unusual to the Western palate. Cold beans, roast pork. It's not really the usual thing that we have with sweet syrups. And so it's this kind of clash in your mind. And I think that's what makes Vietnamese dessert so difficult with this kind of food. There's definitely something that's good about the flavor profile, but it really takes you a minute to kind of get used to really get your head around. It's not the kind of thing that you instantly crave because it's just so far from what you're used to. And that's not really what you're after with dessert. You're after a familiar touch point, a warm, welcoming food. There you go. Chè Hway. Here's my thing with Vietnamese desserts. Vietnam has the best cuisine in Southeast Asia. It's one of the main reasons I moved here. But how can it be that there are so few truly great desserts? To find out, we're taking on some French Vietnamese fusion, one of the most common desserts in Vietnamese street food. Creme caramel was introduced to Vietnam during the French colonial period, which lasted from the mid-19th century until the mid-20th century, and it was quickly adapted into bánh flan. Despite having flan in the name, the dessert really is a variation of the French creme caramel. Once introduced to Vietnam, cooks began adapting the recipe to local tastes and to the available ingredients. Vietnamese bánh flan often uses coconut milk or condensed milk in place of the traditional cow's milk. This creates a distinctive tropical flavor.
Bánh flan, I mean, really it's far more of a creme caramel than a flan, but here you can see instantly the difference in Vietnam. So it's often served with copious amounts of coffee and ice. That's the garnish. And I know it might sound weird at first, but trust me, after you've had a couple of these, you will soon be craving creme caramel coated in coffee at night. Wow. And so obviously the big difference here comes from the garnish, in this instance the coffee. You instantly get that Vietnamese Robusta taste, and man, this is really good. It's definitely got a sort of slightly denser flavor than most of your creme caramels out there, and the ice is just so unusual to just have copious amounts of ice coating the top of it. There is one thing here though. Despite the fact that this is absolutely sensational and that there are some differences from creme caramel, let's be honest, it's French, it's not Vietnamese. The French influences here are way too strong. You would never see this and say that it has been changed enough to be a unique dish. It is a perfect example of when fusion is acceptable within food. It is a tremendous French-Vietnamese fusion, but I don't know, it's clearly a French invention, not a good Vietnamese dessert. A good French-Vietnamese fusion, maybe.
Looking for desserts in Hway, I stumble upon Bánh Cam. Truth be told, this is the first time I have tried this dessert. Bánh Cam features a crispy, deep-fried outer shell made from gelatinous rice flour, which gives it a distinctive chewy texture. It's round in shape and has a golden brown color after frying. It is known for its interesting combination of textures, a crispy exterior with a soft, sweet interior.
Okay, so this was by no means on my list, but we have run into a cute little Bánh Cam store. Something that I have never tried before, some kind of like sweet dumpling battered in sesame seed. Anyway, let's check it out. And then deep fried, everything is good. Inside there's a paste. Sweet mung bean paste, not bad. Not as good as a donut, but you know, we're getting there. Pretty good dessert.
The flavour is a balance of nutty sesame seeds, the subtle sweetness of the mung bean filling, and the neutral taste of the gelatinous rice dough. I've got to admit, it's pretty good. If you're walking around one afternoon in Hway, definitely pick one of these up. Next up, Đậu Hủ, or sweet tofu. Sweet tofu is a dessert made from very soft, silken tofu. This isn't your standard solid form tofu. It's an almost yogurt-like texture that you can eat with a spoon or even just drink with a straw.
The reason he hasn't given me a spoon is that this is incredibly soft tofu.
It is served with a sweet syrup that is often flavored with ginger or pandan leaves.
This morning, we ran into a typical tofu seller who is selling tofu on the side of the road, and I couldn't resist skipping forward. So, what we have here is a kind of standard takeaway glass filled with tofu, syrup, and I just have a straw, which is kind of confusing. I'm used to having a spoon in these kind of situations, but I imagine you just drink it. Let's give it a go. It's not cold at all. That is hot tofu, which makes sense considering it came straight off the press. It's kind of like a real subtle silkiness to the tofu. It is really smooth. It is not the kind of tofu that you would usually find sliced up and put into your pad thai. And the syrup is not overbearing at all. It's not a thick, heavy syrup. It's very watery. Just adds a subtle level of sweetness. And I've got to admit, that's actually really, really freaking good.
It is so good, in fact, that I tracked down a second tofu seller.
It's warm tofu, I can feel it in my hands. And again, it has a syrupy consistency below, and we will compare and contrast to what we had this morning. Let's check it out. Wow, so instantly there's quite a lot of difference here. This is kind of like a more traditional, thicker tofu mix, the kind of stuff you might be a little bit more used to. Again, the syrup is good. It's really warm. It's not too strong. It's not the kind of thick syrup that you pour on pancakes. It's kind of watery. It just adds a little bit more sweetness to the flavor. The tofu has kind of like a, you know, that rich, meaty flavor. So you really need the sweetness. And there's some kumquat in this as opposed to the ginger that we had this morning. Sort of gives it a little bit of a citrus flavor. And yeah, what else can you say? That is surprisingly good. Tofu with syrup, decent.
Sweet tofu is a popular street food in Vietnam. It's enjoyed by people of all ages, and it's often a go-to dessert for its soothing, light characteristics, making it a perfect meal, especially in the hot and humid summer climates.
And I've got to admit, that's actually really, really freaking good. Tin, what the hell am I gonna do, man? This video is supposed to be called Only One Good Vietnamese Dessert, and there's now two of them.
I don't know, man, it's your problem.
Lastly though, we have Chuối Nướng, the holy grail of Vietnamese desserts. Chuối Nướng is a grilled banana. It's straightforward culinary brilliance, and no-frills dessert that delivers an extraordinary experience. Here's the deal. You take a ripe banana, envelop it in delicate rice flour batter, wrap it partly in a banana leaf to prevent burning, and you grill them until sugars form a caramelized, slightly smoky crust, and what you get is not just a dessert, it is a revelation. The roast bananas are served cut into bite-sized pieces, coated in copious amounts of coconut custard and topped with a spoonful of roast peanuts. Finally guys, the holy grail of Vietnamese dessert, Chuối Nướng. Man, I am effing hungry tonight. This looks absolutely stunning, and this is the exact kind of Chuối Nướng that I like. It has, of course, the battered banana, but this one has a dusting of peanuts. Sometimes you get peanuts, sometimes you get sesame. You almost always nowadays get the coconut custard on top, and this should make for an absolutely sensational dessert. Man, that is so effing good. Luckily for Vietnamese desserts, Chuối Nướng just completely makes up for the shortcomings of the others. I think it's that classic international dessert, just caramelized outside, in this case, the grilled rice flour with the kind of gushy, chewy inside. And of course, the sweet coconut custard. It's just a really killer combination. That is really good. I know they have like Michelin level banana fritters in Thailand and stuff like that, but Chuối Nướng really needs more international acclaim. It is a really damn impressive dessert. Wow. That is really good. Chuối Nướng is genius. Unassuming yet bold, simple yet complex, and it is kind of shocking to me that this thing isn't a bigger deal overseas, to be honest. It's the kind of thing that could easily cross borders and be found on restaurant menus across the world. A universally loved flavor profile that appeals to the Western palate as easily as it does the Vietnamese. You could pair it with ice cream, whipped cream, chocolate sauce, caramel sauces. It would pair perfectly. Do not leave Vietnam without trying Chuối Nướng. That is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed that kind of medley, that rundown of all of the Vietnamese desserts that I could at least find easily. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you liked, please give me a subscribe. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.